every single day, whether you realize it or not, you're basically stepping into the shoes of a detective.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. You're sitting at your desk, and this critical piece of software just keeps crashing for literally no reason.
Or, you're staring at a quarterly financial report and the numbers they just don't add up.
Exactly. Or maybe a rival company just launches this massive surprise product out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you're just scrambling, trying to figure out how they kept it a secret for so long.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
It does. And in all of those moments, you aren't just like a passive observer. You are actively investigating. You're hunting for the truth.
It's a completely universal human experience.
Yeah.
Because, the context changes constantly, right?
Right.
Maybe it's a deeply technical glitch or a massive corporate mystery. Or, honestly, even just trying to figure out who ate the last slice of cake in the break room.
The ultimate crime.
Seriously. But the underlying cognitive process is exactly the same. We're presented with a mystery, and our brains are just hardwired to want to solve it.
And the way we talk about solving those mysteries, that is what we're looking at today. We are pulling from this massive stack of research for this deep dive.
Yeah, some really incredible stuff.
It really is. It's this fascinating collection of linguistic histories, cognitive psychology papers, and etymology guides. And we're using it to map out what we could call the architecture of human deduction.
I love that phrase.
Yeah, we are looking specifically at the advanced, highly evocative idioms that native English speakers use to describe the process of solving a problem. Okay, let's unpack this, because when we finally find the answer to something difficult, we rarely just say, I figured it out.
No, almost never. That's way too clinical.
Right, it's boring. Instead, we use these incredibly intense metaphors, and they're pulled from ancient history, from folklore, and even from ballistics.
We really do. We dress up our everyday intellectual challenges in the language of epic quests.
High-stakes thrillers, basically.
Exactly. And if you dig into the psychology behind it, it makes perfect sense when you think about how an investigation actually begins.
Because it's a blank slate, right?
Right. Every investigation, no matter what it is, starts in the dark. You have absolutely no idea where to begin. You just have this massive amorphous problem.
Staring you in the face.
Yeah, and overcoming that initial darkness requires sheer, unadulterated effort. It is not about brilliance or genius at that early stage. It's just about brute force.
And when you're staring at that blank slate, relying on brute force, you have to search absolutely everywhere. You have to, as the idiom goes, leave no stone unturned.
Leave no stone unturned.
Right. It means to conduct this exhaustive, meticulously thorough search. You're trying absolutely every possible method to find an answer.
Refusing to quit.
Refusing to quit until you do. But the origin of this phrase is what gives it so much conceptual weight. It's a deeply physical, ancient Greek metaphor.
Yeah, according to the historical text we're looking at, it comes from after a massive, bloody battle.
Right.
A general supposedly hid this vast treasure of gold in the dirt. He just buried it out in a sweeping valley.
Somewhere out there.
Somewhere out there.
And the people who were looking for this treasure eventually went to an oracle for advice. Now, you go to an oracle when you're completely out of ideas. You're hoping for some divine shortcut.
Right. Give me the map.
Exactly. But the oracle didn't give them a map. There was no clever riddle. The oracle literally instructed them to go back to the valley, pick up, and look under every single rock.
I mean, imagine the sheer physical toll of that. A whole valley.
That sounds awful.
Thousands, maybe millions of stones, lifting heavy rocks, scraping your hands in the dirt day after day. And there's no guarantee that the next rock is the right one.
Yeah, it could be at it for years.
Exactly. It perfectly captures the sheer exhaustion of starting an investigation when you don't have a clear lead. You are just manually grinding through the space.
And that physical exhaustion ties right into another phrase we use at the beginning of a massive problem, getting to the bottom of it.
Oh, yeah. To get to the bottom of it?
Yeah.
That means finding the absolute fundamental root cause of a scandal or a complex technical issue.
Like cutting through the noise.
Right. You're cutting through all the lies, the confusion, and the surface level symptoms to find the core truth of the matter.
The source material paints such a vivid picture for this one, too. It's this deep water metaphor. Imagine dropping a heavy coin into a murky, muddy lake.
You can't see a thing.
Nothing. You're standing on the shore looking at the water, but you can't see the coin from the surface because the water is entirely opaque.
Yeah.
So what do you have to do? You have to literally dive in, you have to hold your breath, swim down into the darkness, and push your way through the thick suffocating mud until your hands finally touch the solid bottom where that coin is resting.
It's a phenomenal image. It really captures the claustrophobia and the resistance you feel when a problem is deeply entrenched.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the mud represents all the friction and confusion keeping you from the truth.
You know, it makes me think about modern knowledge work, like doing a manual audit of a massive, messy spreadsheet with, 10,000 rows of unstructured data.
It is. Or debugging thousands of lines of legacy spaghetti code. It honestly feels exactly like swimming through mud or flipping over heavy rocks in a valley. Your eyes hurt, your brain is completely foggy.
Yeah, you're just brute forcing your way through the data line by line, rock by rock.
What's fascinating here is the contrast, right?
Yeah.
And the psychology behind why we do this. We live in this highly digital, increasingly intellectual world.
Very detached from physical labor.
Exactly. We sit in ergonomic chairs in climate-controlled offices staring at flat screens, yet our language refuses to let go of these deeply physical, exhausting images.
And cognitive psychologists actually point to a concept called embodied cognition to explain that.
Embodied cognition.
Yeah, basically our brains evolved to navigate physical spaces and manipulate physical objects. We process abstract, complex thoughts using the exact same neural pathways that handle physical movement and spatial awareness.
Oh, wow. So they're physically linked in the brain.
They are. So our brains actually need to borrow the sensation of manual labor, the heavy rocks, the suffocating mud, to adequately convey the sheer mental effort required to start solving a formless problem.
That is wild. The intellectual heavy lifting is represented by actual heavy lifting.
Exactly. But brute force only gets you so far.
Right.
Eventually, if you lift enough rocks and swim through enough mud, you hit something solid. You find a clue. And the second you have a lead, the entire dynamic of the investigation changes. You're no longer digging blindly. You have to track.
And this is where the detective work truly begins to require finesse rather than just muscle. Once you have a lead, you need to track it carefully, deliberately, step by step. You have to follow the breadcrumbs.
We're moving from ancient Greece straight into classic European literature here.
Specifically, the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, Hansel and Gretel.
Right. In that classic story, the two children are lost in a terrifying dark forest. And to find their way back home, they drop tiny pieces of breadcrumbs on the ground behind them.
Just creating this fragile little trail.
Exactly. And in modern problem solving, like digital forensics or criminal investigations, following the breadcrumbs means tracking a series of tiny, subtle clues that eventually lead you to the hidden truth.
Right, like a cybersecurity team tracking a hacker's footprint across different servers. They're just following the digital breadcrumbs directly to their IP address.
Yeah, but the inherent danger of a breadcrumb trail is its fragility. And, the tunnel vision it requires.
Tunnel vision.
Well, think about it. If you're following breadcrumbs, you have to look down at the ground, focusing intently on these tiny microscopic details.
I see it.
And when your cognitive focus is that narrow, you become incredibly vulnerable to deception. You're no longer seeing the wider forest, which means you become highly vulnerable to a red herring.
Ah, the red herring. A piece of information or a clue that's deliberately planted. It's completely irrelevant and designed specifically to mislead you or distract you from the truth.
Yes.
And the origin of this one comes from the history of animal training, which is just so interesting.
It is. So centuries ago, people needed a way to preserve small herring fish. They'd smoke them and salt them heavily.
Right.
And this curing process turned the flesh of the fish a dark reddish color. But much more importantly, it gave the fish an incredibly pungent, overwhelming, and frankly, terrible smell.
Awful smell. So when people were training hunting dogs to track foxes, the trainers would take one of these smelly red herrings and drag it directly across the path of the trail.
Basically testing their discipline.
Exactly. They wanted to see if the dogs would get distracted by this overpowering, horrible fish smell, or if they had the focus to ignore it and stay on the actual scent of the fox.
Psychologically, it is the perfect metaphor for human deception.
Oh, totally.
In a corporate cover-up, a political scandal, or even just a bad argument with a partner, the guilty party will almost always throw a red herring into the mix.
Every time.
They'll introduce a piece of data or a dramatic storyline that smells so strong, so emotionally captivating, that the investigators lose the scent of the actual truth. The psychology of distraction isn't just about feeding someone false data. It's about feeding them highly stimulating data that hijacks their attention.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. I have to push back a little on the vocabulary we're using here.
Okay, go for it.
Because think about the gravity of what we're describing. You have a massive multinational corporation dealing with multi-million-dollar embezzlement, or, a team of elite federal agents tracking an international spy ring.
Very serious situations.
The stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah.
And yet, the absolute most professional, C-suite level vocabulary we have to describe these sophisticated operations comes from a children's fairy tale about lost kids and an ancient trick used to train dogs with smelly fish.
It does sound ridiculous when you put it like that.
Right. Why don't we have more clinical scientific terms for this?
Well, it sounds absurd, but it reveals something profound about how our brains operate. Human beings are fundamentally storytellers.
Wow.
We aren't naturally wired to process abstract, sterile data sets. When we're dealing with complex modern deceptions like shell corporations, encrypted malware, or algorithmic bias, our brains just struggle to grasp the invisible mechanics of the lie.
Because it's just numbers on a screen.
Exactly. Sterile data doesn't stick in our memory, so we instinctively reach for familiar, tangible narratives.
We literally need to see the kids in the forest to understand the hacker in the mainframe.
We do. We need the tactile image of the lost children dropping bread or the hunting dog sniffing the smelly fish. We use these vivid physical stories to wrap our heads around abstract concepts. It makes the invisible visible.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. The fairy tale and the dog training trick survive in our corporate lexicon because they are the absolute most efficient way to communicate the exact flavor of the deception.
Okay, so let's say you're a brilliant detective. You've ignored all the smelly fish, you didn't get distracted by the red herrings, and you've successfully gathered every single real breadcrumb.
Nice. Good job.
Thanks. So you have a desk absolutely covered in data. But as anyone who has done research knows, data isn't an answer. Having a pile of clues is not the same as solving the mystery.
No, it's not.
You now have to structure the logic.
Gathering the clues is an act of physical effort and sharp perception. But now, the work becomes purely analytical. You have to look at this chaotic pile of information and figure out how it all interacts. You have to connect the dots.
Connecting the dots. Another childhood metaphor coming directly from those paper puzzles we all did as kids.
Oh, yeah, I love those.
Me too. You look at a piece of paper and all you see are 50 random, isolated black spots. It just looks like chaos, a mess of ink.
Yeah.
But then you take your pencil and you draw a line connecting dot 1 to dot 2, and suddenly a clear picture of an elephant or a house emerges from the chaos.
It's a great metaphor for synthesis. But the realization here from the cognitive research is that data collection and data synthesis require two completely different states of mind.
How so?
Well, in an intellectual investigation, connecting the dots means taking seemingly unrelated facts, events, or pieces of data and realizing the hidden relationship between them.
Right.
It's the realization that the suspect's timeline, the missing money, and the strange phone call aren't three separate events. They are the outline of a single picture. They are one conspiracy.
Oh, I see.
But here's the key. You cannot successfully connect the dots while you're still in the turning over stones phase. Our language separates these idioms because they require separate cognitive modes. You have to stop digging to look at the map.
That is such a good point. And once you draw those lines, once the picture is revealed, the answer usually feels incredibly obvious. You don't need to be a genius anymore. You just need to apply basic, undeniable truth to what you're seeing. You just have to put two and two together.
To put two and two together. We move from childhood puzzles to fundamental mathematics.
Right. 2 + 2 = 4.
It's the most basic, undeniable logic in the universe. It's the definition of common sense. So to put two and two together means to deduce the truth about a situation by looking at the incredibly obvious clues right in front of you.
Right.
Like you see your coworker buying expensive jewelry and you know their spouse's birthday's tomorrow. You put two and two together. It's a surprise party. You reach an inescapable conclusion.
That makes sense in theory, but it bothers me.
Why is that?
Well, if the ultimate act of logic is really as simple as putting two and two together, why do smart people fail to solve mysteries all the time? Like, why do entire teams of highly educated forensic accountants miss massive corporate fraud like we saw with the big accounting scandals in the early 2000s? The fraud was happening right under their noses. Were they just looking at the wrong dots?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's almost never about a lack of intelligence. The real culprit is cognitive overload. The idiom put two and two together is a little bit deceptive because it represents logic in a complete vacuum. In the real world, when you're auditing a massive company or investigating a complex system failure, you're almost never staring at just two twos.
Right, there's way more.
You're staring at 1,000 random dots, 50 red herrings, and a mountain of mud.
You're overwhelmed with noise.
Exactly. The difficulty isn't doing the math. The difficulty is isolating the correct variables to perform the math on.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's only in hindsight, after the detective has cleared away the distractions and connected the right dots, that the logic looks as simple as 2 plus 2. Before that moment of synthesis, it looks like an unsolvable equation. Hindsight bias creates the illusion that the complex was always simple.
But even when you do finally isolate those variables, and the logic seems perfect in your head, you know exactly who did it or why the system is failing, a theory isn't enough to finish the job.
No, it's not.
You can't just walk into a boardroom or courtroom with a really good guess. To truly win, to definitively end the investigation, you need physical proof.
A theory, no matter how logically sound or mathematically perfect, is still just a theory until it's anchored to reality by evidence.
Right.
You need an artifact that confirms your logic beyond any shadow of a doubt. You need a smoking gun.
A smoking gun. We are escalating the vocabulary significantly here. We've moved from muddy lakes and breadcrumbs to an intense ballistics metaphor.
Picture the classic murder mystery trope. The detective bursts through the door into a room, there's a victim on the floor, and standing right there is a suspect holding a pistol.
Right.
And literally floating out of the barrel of that pistol is a wisp of gray smoke.
You don't need a confession at that point. You don't need to interview witnesses. The physical physics of the weapon are undeniable. The smoke proves the gun was just fired.
In modern usage, whether it's corporate, political, or scientific, a smoking gun refers to an indisputable, undeniable piece of evidence.
Right, like the leaked internal email where the executives explicitly admit to the crime.
Exactly. Or it's the specific error log in the software code that conclusively proves the theory is 100% true. It leaves absolutely no room for debate.
And when you finally find that smoking gun, when you prove your theory, you've achieved the ultimate intellectual victory. You've officially cracked the case or cracked the code.
Cracking the case. This originates from the world of cryptography and safecracking. Think of a heavy, impenetrable steel box containing a valuable treasure. Without the key, it's designed to keep you out.
It's hostile architecture. It's meant to be impossible to open.
Precisely. The problem is actively fighting against you. So to get inside, you can't just ask nicely.
No.
You have to use a stethoscope, press it against the cold steel, slowly turn the dial, listen for the tiny mechanical clicks, and forcefully crack the complex combination lock.
Wow.
To crack the case means to finally solve a highly complex mystery that has baffled people for a long time. It implies breaking through a heavy, intentional wall of secrecy.
So what does this all mean? When you look back at this journey we just took, the escalation of the vocabulary is incredible.
It really is.
We started this deep dive down in the dirt. We were digging in the mud, holding our breath, lifting heavy rocks in a valley. Then we were lost in the woods, tracking crumbs and dodging smelly fish.
Oh.
We were drawing lines on paper. And we ended it by bursting into rooms with recently fired weapons and cracking heavy steel safes with stethoscopes.
This raises an important question about how we view ourselves when we're thinking critically. Our language does not portray intellectual problem solving as a quiet, passive, or boring activity.
Not at all.
It doesn't sound like sitting at a desk reading a report. It sounds like a thrilling, high-stakes battle against secrecy. It frames deduction as a heroic act of breaking through barriers to reclaim the truth.
It's an absolute adventure, and that's exactly what we want to bring back to you, the listener. The next time you're sitting there, frustrated, trying to figure out a tough problem, whether it's a massive roadblock at work, a challenging assignment at school, or just trying to fix a broken appliance at home, remember that you aren't just fixing an issue.
Right.
You are a detective. You're swimming through the mud to get to the bottom of it. You're dodging smelly red herrings. You're separating data collection from data synthesis so you can connect the scattered dots. You are hunting for the smoking gun, and you are cracking the safe. You're participating in this grand, ancient tradition of human deduction.
Every problem solved is a mystery cracked. You're using the exact same cognitive architecture that humans have relied on for centuries to make sense of the unknown.
And that leads us to a final, slightly mind-bending thought to leave you with today.
Ooh, okay.
If our cutting-edge modern vocabulary for problem-solving is built entirely on these ancient Greek myths, 19th century ballistics, and old European fairy tales, what entirely new metaphors are we accidentally creating right now in the digital age? Think about the technology we use every day to manage our lives and our minds.
That's a great point.
Will humans 500 years from now use a phrase like unplugging the server or clearing the cache as a poetic, romantic idiom to describe solving a mystery or clearing their minds?
It's fascinating to consider. The mundane tech troubleshooting of today is inevitably going to become the folklore and mythology of tomorrow.
Exactly. The servers and the code of today are just the muddy lakes and the heavy stones of the future. Something to think about the next time you have to restart your router. You might just be acting out the origin story of an idiom that someone will use in the year 2500.
Keep digging through that mud.
Keep looking for those clues and happy investigating.
You know, usually when we think of an investigator or really just a detective trying to solve some kind of major problem, there is this immediate expectation of scarcity.
Oh, yeah, like a lack of clues.
Exactly. We picture this classic, almost cinematic detective, right? You've got the trench coat, the magnifying glass in hand, maybe a pipe.
Crawling around on the floor of a dimly lit room.
Right. Desperately scouring the crime scene for that one hidden microscopic clue, like a stuff mark on a shoe or a single thread from a jacket.
The needle in the haystack?
Yes, exactly. The fundamental problem, traditionally anyway, is a total lack of information. You are completely starved for clues, and the whole job basically is just finding them.
Which is a very linear, very comforting idea of how problem solving works, I think.
Comforting, how so?
Well, it assumes the truth is this physical object buried in the yard, right? And you just need to dig in the exact right spot to uncover a few hidden data points.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and once you have them, boom, you solve the entire mystery. But that framework is completely obsolete when you look at how human beings actually solve complex problems today.
Because when you step into the modern world, whether you are a financial analyst or a software developer, an investigative journalist, or honestly, just a regular person trying to figure out why your home Wi-Fi network went down.
Right, the everyday mysteries.
Yeah, that magnifying glass is basically useless now. We aren't starving for data anymore. In fact, we are absolutely drowning in it.
Drowning is the right word.
I mean, the hardest part of solving a mystery today isn't finding the data. We have thousands of data points thrown at our faces every single second. The hardest part is organizing the absolute chaos inside our own minds.
It is the absolute definition of cognitive overload. I mean, the modern battleground for truth isn't out there in the physical world anymore. It's an internal psychological journey.
Yeah, totally.
You literally have to navigate your own neurological limitations before you can even begin to understand the external problem in front of you.
And that internal journey is exactly our mission for today. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are exploring this really fascinating breakdown of what you might call, the detective's mind. We are going to look at how we, as humans, make sense of our own neurological processes when we're trying to crack a complex code or solve a massive problem.
And we have some incredible source material for this.
We really do. Specifically, we're taking a masterclass from C2 Advanced English Listening Practice, and we're going to look at how the English language uses deeply poetic, incredibly sophisticated metaphors, drawing from things like acoustic engineering, biology, ancient mysticism, and even Greek history.
It's quite the mix.
Right. To map out the journey from utter mind-numbing frustration to those sudden, beautiful bursts of genius.
It really is a roadmap of human cognition. I mean, before you can successfully arrive at an answer, you almost always have to survive this period of intense psychological friction.
The messy middle part.
Exactly. You overthink, you get completely paralyzed by the sheer volume of information, and your brain genuinely feels like it is short-circuiting. But then this biological and psychological shift happens. Your subconscious takes over, the pieces align, and the answer it just appears.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to start right in the trenches of that psychological friction you just mentioned.
The best place to start.
Right. So think about the very beginning of a massive crisis. Imagine a sudden catastrophic stock market crash, or maybe a massive computer glitch that takes down a global banking system.
High stakes, high stress.
Exactly. As the person tasked with figuring out what went wrong, You aren't looking at a quiet crime scene. You are staring at a wall of flashing red monitors.
Which is terrifying.
It is. You are being aggressively bombarded with thousands of conflicting pieces of information all at once. Panic reports, anomalous numbers, system alerts going off. It's a state of immense frustration.
Yeah.
And the immediate urgent task, the very first thing you have to do is separate the signal from the noise.
And if you dig into the origins of that specific concept, separating the signal from the noise, you find this brilliant acoustic and engineering metaphor that perfectly captures the biological fatigue of data overload.
It comes from early radio, right?
It does, directly from the early days of analog radio transmission.
Okay, so imagine tuning one of those heavy, old-school analog radios. For anyone who remembers physically turning a thick plastic dial to find a station, you know the exact sensory experience we are talking about here.
The physical weight of the dial.
Yes, and when your dial is hovering somewhere between frequencies, you don't just get peaceful silence. You are hit with this loud, chaotic, buzzing, really aggressive static.
Oh, I can hear it in my head right now.
Right. And it's not just unhelpful. It's physically exhausting to listen to for more than a few seconds. That relentless static that is the noise.
And the word noise is doing a lot of heavy lifting there because in acoustics, noise implies a waveform with absolutely no discernible pattern.
Just pure chaos.
Right. And the human brain is essentially a pattern recognition machine. So when it encounters static, which is pure randomness, it burns an enormous amount of metabolic energy, desperately trying to find a rhythm or a structure that simply doesn't exist.
Oh, wow. So your brain is literally working overtime on nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is why listening to static is so exhausting. It is cognitive quicksand.
And if we translate that to the modern investigation, like in the context of investigating that stock market crash, the noise represents the massive amounts of useless, irrelevant, or highly distracting data surrounding the event.
All the chatter.
Yeah, it's the panic, it's the false reports on social media, the terrified emails from executives, the minor fluctuations in completely unrelated markets.
It's all the data points that demand your immediate attention, but actually have absolutely nothing to do with the root cause of the crash.
But the crucial part of the metaphor, the reason it works so well, is what happens when you keep turning that dial just a tiny fraction of a millimeter more.
Right. Because hidden somewhere inside that terrible buzzing static is the clear, beautiful, structured music of a radio station.
And that music is the signal.
Yes, it is the one true, valuable fact that actually explains the reality of the situation.
You know, the ultimate test of a modern analytical mind isn't finding information anymore. It's successfully filtering out the auditory assault of the noise so you can isolate that pure signal.
Because the noise is everywhere now.
It really is. Consider just reading political news on your social media feed during a major geopolitical event. It is incredibly taxing. You can spend 4 hours scrolling, reading hundreds of opinions, bots fighting with each other, completely unverified claims.
It's just endless doom scrolling.
Right, and at the end of it, you feel completely drained and still have no idea what actually happened.
The fatigue you feel there is identical to listening to the radio static. It's the exact same mechanism. And on social media, the noise isn't an accident, you know? It is amplified by design.
Because of the algorithms.
Exactly. Algorithms favor engagement, and outrage or panic generates the highest engagement. So the platform functions as an amplifier for the static. It takes an immense amount of cognitive discipline to ignore the panic, trace a claim back to an original primary source, and locate the clear music of the actual event.
It's exhausting just thinking about it. But, you know, there's a totally different way the brain gets trapped early in an investigation, too.
Right. It's not always about the noise.
Exactly. Sometimes the reason you are frustrated isn't because you are being bombarded by a million different data points. Sometimes you fail to find the signal because you are standing far too close to the problem itself.
Ah, yes. Proximity.
You aren't distracted by noise, you are paralyzed by a hyperfocus on tiny microscopic details. You fall into the trap of not being able to see the forest for the trees.
What's fascinating here is that this shifts our cognitive map from the auditory world of the radio dial to the visual, almost fractal world of botany.
I love that the fractal world of botany.
Well, it is. The psychological trap here isn't about filtering information. It's entirely about proximity and perspective.
Okay, picture this. You are walking into a massive, ancient, beautiful forest. There are towering redwoods, a vast canopy above you, winding trails, rivers cutting through the valley.
A huge, complex ecosystem.
Right. But instead of taking in that grand landscape, you walk right up to a single tree trunk. You plant your face exactly 1 inch away from the bark, and you just stare at it.
Think about the sensory deprivation that occurs in that state, though. When your eyes are locked onto a surface from an inch away, your entire field of vision is completely consumed by the microscopic geography of that bark.
All you see is bark.
Right. You see the deep ridges, maybe a patch of green moss, a line of tiny ants carrying a leaf, and your mind becomes intensely, obsessively focused on these intricate microscopic details.
And while you are doing that, you are entirely oblivious to the fact that there's a massive forest fire rapidly approaching from a mile away.
Because you can't see it.
Your field of vision is completely compromised by your own proximity to a single isolated element. In the workplace, or really in any kind of problem solving, if someone cannot see the forest for the trees, they have become completely obsessed with minor, totally insignificant details, causing a catastrophic failure to grasp the overall situation.
And the thing is, it functions as a psychological defense mechanism.
Really? How so?
Well, when a problem is too large, too complex, or just too terrifying, like our metaphorical forest fire, the human brain often retreats. It seeks out something small, manageable, and controllable to focus on.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
It's a form of procrastination disguised as intense productivity.
Oh my gosh, I actually did this exact thing a few weeks ago.
Really? What happened?
Well, my home Wi-Fi router completely died right before a massive video call. I panicked, but instead of just checking the physical hardware like a normal person, I immediately logged into the admin portal on my laptop.
Oh no, going straight to the back end.
I spent 45 minutes frantically checking IP addresses, reconfiguring DNS settings, arguing with the command prompt on my computer totally deep in the trees. I was sweating, tweaking these microscopic network details.
Let me guess, it was a physical problem.
Yes. Finally, my partner walks into the room, looks behind the desk, and points out that the dog had literally unplugged the power cord from the wall.
That is the perfect illustration of the trap. Reconfiguring DNS settings feels like highly technical, important work.
It really did feel important at the time.
Right, because it satisfies the brain's desire to solve a problem. It feels productive. But it completely blinds you to the foundational reality of the situation.
You know, there's an incredible corporate example of this phenomenon in the source material involving software development.
Oh, the logo color argument.
Yes. So a team of highly paid, brilliant engineers were working on a major app launch. The software itself had a critical flaw. It continuously crashed every time a user tried to check out.
Which is obviously an existential threat to the product. If they can't buy anything, the app is useless.
Exactly. But instead of tearing down the code to find the crash, the management and engineering team spent 3 entire weeks in back-to-back meetings arguing aggressively about the specific shade of blue to use for the app's logo.
The crashing software is the massive, terrifying forest fire in this scenario.
Yes.
And fixing it requires looking at the entire architecture of the code, which is daunting and, frankly, ego-bruising. Nobody wants to admit their code is broken. The logo color, on the other hand, is the bark on a single tree.
It's safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's subjective, it's easy to argue about, and it allows everyone in the room to feel like they are contributing to the project without having to tackle the actual crisis. They allowed a minor aesthetic detail to completely blind them to the fact that the product was functionally dead.
So we have these 2 massive traps at the beginning of any investigation. If staring at the overwhelming data isn't working because of the noise, and staring at the tiny details isn't working because you lose the big picture, how does an investigator actually move forward?
It's a huge wall to hit.
It is. When empirical data and logical analysis completely fail us, how do we break the stalemate?
This is where the internal cognitive journey takes a really profound turn. You have to undergo a perspective shift. You have to temporarily abandon the conscious analytical part of your brain that demands spreadsheets and proof and rely on a completely different, much older type of intelligence.
You have to trust a gut feeling.
You have to trust a gut feeling.
We use that phrase so casually all the time, but it is actually rooted in literal physical biology.
It's not just poetry.
No, not at all. When we talk about the gut, the stomach and the entire digestive tract, we aren't just talking about digesting food. Biologists frequently refer to the gut as the body's second brain.
Because of the enteric nervous system.
Exactly. It contains this massive network of millions of neurons embedded directly in the lining of your gastrointestinal system.
And those millions of neurons are in constant bidirectional communication with your actual brain. They react instantly to stress, fear, and environmental shifts.
So the metaphor isn't just a figure of speech. It describes a deeply ingrained evolutionary survival mechanism.
Right. Think about, imagine walking down a hallway and stepping into a completely dark room.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Before your conscious brain has even had a chance to process the shadows or notice the lack of sound or register the temperature of the room, basically,
Yeah.
before it knows why you might be in danger, your stomach instantly drops. It clenches up, tightens, and you feel physically nauseous.
Like that awful sinking feeling.
Yes, that physical drop in your stomach is your subconscious. It is taking in millions of micro inputs from your environment, processing them at a speed that logic simply cannot match, and bypassing your analytical brain entirely to send a blaring emergency alert directly to your nervous system.
So in the context of an investigation, or really any complex decision, a gut feeling is a deep, instinctive conclusion that you arrive at instantaneously.
Faster than thought.
Right. And the most terrifying part for an analytical mind, someone who loves data, is that you reach this conclusion without a single shred of logical proof or empirical evidence to back it up.
It completely forces a confrontation between our modern training and our ancient biology. We are so conditioned in corporate and scientific environments to worship data.
Oh, absolutely. If it's not on a spreadsheet, it didn't happen.
Right. If you can't put it in a PowerPoint, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But the gut feeling demands that you trust a profound biological warning over the absence of immediate data.
Now, hold on. I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
How do you separate a genuine gut feeling from just, basic paranoia or worse, confirmation bias?
That is the big question.
Like if I'm a hiring manager and a candidate walks in with a flawless resume, they went to the right schools, they answered every interview question perfectly, all the empirical data says they are the absolute best hire.
A perfect candidate on paper.
Right. But then I decide to reject them purely because I had a vague, bad gut feeling about them. Aren't I just being a terrible manager? Couldn't that gut feeling just be hidden prejudice because maybe they're reminding me of someone I don't like?
That is the exact danger of intuition, and it's a brilliant point to bring up. If it's pure bias, it's a failure.
Yeah.
But a seasoned investigator or a highly emotionally intelligent manager knows how to interrogate their own gut feeling.
Interrogate it.
Yeah. In that interview scenario you just mentioned, your conscious mind is reading the resume and checking the boxes. But your subconscious is simultaneously processing the candidate's micro-expressions.
Like tiny facial pics.
Exactly. It's analyzing a half second of hesitation before they answered a question about teamwork. It's picking up on a slight condescension in their tone of voice when they spoke to the receptionist on the way in, or defensive body language when they were challenged on a point.
Oh, I see. So the data isn't missing. It's just data that the conscious mind hasn't had time to categorize yet.
Exactly. The millions of neurons in your gut are screaming that this person's behavioral patterns simply don't match the pristine paper reality of their resume.
The empirical data says hire, but the biological data says danger.
Right. The masterful problem solver knows they have to pause the logic and actually listen to the biology.
Which brings up the challenge of application, doesn't it? If we are actively trying to trust our intuition, we are essentially trying to predict the future or uncover hidden motives based on incredibly subtle, almost invisible clues.
It's a very delicate art.
To describe this exact process, the English language pivots away from biology and leans into this highly mystical ancient metaphor, reading the tea leaves.
We move from the hard science of the enteric nervous system to the ancient art of tasseography, which is the practice of fortune-telling using leftover tea.
Picture a mystic or a fortune teller centuries ago. A client drinks a cup of hot, loose-leaf tea. When they finish, they hand the cup back.
A very standard ritual.
And then the fortune teller peers into the bottom of the ceramic cup and just stares at the chaotic, wet, scattered pattern of the leftover leaves stuck to the porcelain.
Just staring at the debris.
Right. They're looking at this totally random, messy debris and claiming they can use it to predict the future.
The irony embedded in this metaphor is what makes it so powerful, honestly. Think about it. There is absolutely zero scientific data in a teacup.
None.
It is literally just wet garbage left over from a beverage. By definition, there is no empirical evidence to analyze.
So idiomatically, when we say a detective, a financial analyst, or an employee is reading the tea leaves in a modern context, we are describing the delicate act of analyzing very subtle, unofficial clues, hints, or behavioral changes to figure out what is really going on in a complex situation where official data has been deliberately hidden or simply doesn't exist yet.
It is the active application of the gut feeling.
Wow.
You don't have the signed contract, you don't have the forensic report, but you are highly attuned to the shifting environment around you.
You're picking up on the vibes, essentially.
Basically, yeah. You are looking at the wet leaves at the bottom of the corporate cup, and letting human pattern recognition do its job.
Consider a situation where you are trying to anticipate unannounced corporate layoffs.
A very stressful situation to be in.
Oh, completely. And the CEO hasn't sent out an ominous company-wide email. Human resources is completely silent. There is no official spreadsheet floating around saying people are going to lose their jobs.
No hard data.
None. But you notice that over the last 3 weeks, several routine project budgets have been severely slashed without explanation.
Okay, that's one leaf in the cup.
You notice that the weekly all-hands meetings have been abruptly canceled 2 weeks in a row, and you see the CFO rushing into closed-door meetings looking visibly stressed.
None of those individual events is a smoking gun on its own. I mean, a canceled meeting is just a canceled meeting.
Budgets get cut all the time.
Right. But when you synthesize them, when you read the tea leaves, the larger, unannounced reality becomes glaringly obvious. Your intuition stitches those minor anomalies together into a coherent forecast, entirely without official proof.
But eventually, intuition has to face reality. You can't just operate on gut feelings forever.
No, eventually you need proof.
Right. You've sensed the danger, you've read the tea leaves, and now you have built a working theory. You might even have gathered 99% of the actual evidence you need to prove it. But your theory still doesn't perfectly hold together.
There's a gap.
Yes, there is a logical gap. The narrative doesn't quite work. This is the stage of the investigation where you are desperately searching for the missing piece of the puzzle.
This brings us to a metaphor based on the psychology of the Zeigarnik effect.
Remind me what that is again.
It's the psychological principle that people remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks significantly better than completed ones.
Oh, that makes sense. It's why cliffhangers on TV shows drive us crazy.
Exactly. An unresolved mystery takes up a massive amount of mental RAM. And the jigsaw puzzle metaphor captures the sheer agony of that unresolved state perfectly.
Oh, anyone who has ever been a fan of puzzles knows the exact visceral pain this phrase evokes.
It is a unique kind of torture.
It really is. Imagine spending an entire month working on a massive, highly complex 5,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. It completely takes over your dining room table.
You're eating dinner on the couch for a month.
Exactly. You sort the edge pieces, you painstakingly organize the colors, you put in hours of meticulous back-breaking work. Finally, you get to the very end of the month, the image is almost complete, and you realize there is one single empty hole right dead in the center of the cardboard image.
The psychological frustration there is immense. I mean, the picture is 99% complete. From a distance, you can clearly see what the image is. But because of that one tiny empty space, the entire endeavor feels ruined.
It feels like a failure.
It is unresolved. The human brain simply cannot abide the gap. It fixates entirely on the missing element rather than the 4,999 pieces you successfully placed.
But then you get down on your hands and knees, you look under the dining room chair, and you find it.
The relief.
You pick up that one final, awkwardly shaped piece. The exact moment you press it down and it snaps into the cardboard, the entire image is suddenly perfect, whole, and completely undeniable. The tension just evaporates.
When we map that onto an investigation, the missing piece of the puzzle isolates a very specific singular requirement. It refers to the one crucial fact, or the one specific witness, or the one hidden document that is absolutely necessary to finally cross the bridge between a strong intuitive theory and undeniable empirical fact.
Let's look at a classic criminal investigation scenario for this one.
Okay, play it out.
Let's say your gut told you months ago that a powerful local politician is corrupt. You read the tea leaves, you notice there's sudden influx of wealth. There's secretive meetings with real estate developers.
The signs were all there.
Right. You've gathered tons of circumstantial evidence showing that a specific offshore bank account is being used to launder bribe money. You have the theory, and it makes complete sense. But the defense attorneys will absolutely tear it apart in court because you can't physically connect the politician to the account.
It's a massive puzzle with a giant hole in the middle.
Exactly. The theory is essentially useless without the anchor.
Right. But then an informant hands you a secret audio recording of the politician reading the account number out loud. Or maybe forensics finds the politician's fingerprint on a glass at a clandestine meeting with the bank manager.
Wow, yeah.
That single recording, or that solitary fingerprint, is the missing piece of the puzzle. The moment you acquire it, the entire criminal enterprise snaps into sharp focus. The gap is closed, and the theory becomes a permanent reality.
What's deeply fascinating here is the phenomenology of that exact moment. Like, what does the brain physically and emotionally experience the millisecond that piece snaps into place?
It's a huge shift.
We transition into the next phase of the breakthrough, where the chaos is finally defeated and everything suddenly falls into place.
And the mechanical metaphor used to describe this cognitive relief is one of the most relatable in modern culture, I think.
Oh, definitely.
They use the gravitational mechanics of the classic video game Tetris.
It really is a masterful analogy for how the brain processes cognitive organization and relief.
If you've ever played Tetris, you know the rising panic of the mid-game.
Oh, the stress is real.
You have this chaotic, jagged, totally disorganized stack of geometric blocks building up higher and higher toward the top of the screen.
And the music is speeding up.
Yes, the music is frantic. Nothing fits right. You've made mistakes. There are empty gaps everywhere beneath the surface, and you are frantically scrambling just to survive.
That jagged, rising stack of blocks is the perfect visual representation of a complex, unsolved problem. It is precarious, it's stressful, and it genuinely threatens to overwhelm you at any second.
But then, the game's algorithm finally gives you a gift. It spawns that perfect, long, light blue, straight line piece.
The savior piece.
Exactly. You quickly guide it over to the edge of the screen, position it over the deepest gap, and you just drop it.
The moment you let it go, gravity takes over. The straight block slides perfectly down the side, slamming into the bottom. And instantly, the magic happens.
4 horizontal lines flash and clear.
Yes. The massive, chaotic structure suddenly drops, organizes itself flawlessly, and the board is clean.
That sudden transition from overwhelming, jagged chaos to smooth, perfect alignment is exactly how the human mind feels when a complex situation finally makes sense.
It's so satisfying.
When we say a mystery or a massive project falls into place, we are describing the beautiful, almost narcotic phenomenon where a long period of confusion is suddenly resolved. The gravity of logic takes over, the contradictions vanish, and the structure of the truth stands perfectly clear.
Think about the academic version of this.
Oh, I've lived this one.
I think we all have. You are sitting in an advanced organic chemistry lecture. The professor has been talking for an hour about molecular bonds, and you are completely, hopelessly lost.
Just a wall of noise.
Right. The concepts are just a chaotic stack of Tetris blocks in your mind. You are stressed. You are falling behind. But then the professor turns to the whiteboard and draws one specific, highly simplified diagram of the molecule.
The straight line piece.
Exactly. The second you look at the drawing boom, everything the professor said for the last hour suddenly falls into place in your mind. The chaotic jargon organizes itself into a perfect, understandable concept.
You can see the exact same thing in the business world, too.
How so?
Imagine you were trying to launch a startup. You have a complex business plan with 100 moving parts, manufacturing delays, marketing strategies, hiring quotas. It feels completely chaotic and incredibly precarious, like it could all collapse tomorrow.
Very stressful.
But the moment you secure the official $2 million bank loan, the rest of the plan just falls into place. The funding was the straight line Tetris block. Once it dropped in, the manufacturing and the hiring instantly aligned and the structure stabilized.
And that specific millisecond of realization, the exact instant when the Tetris block hits the bottom, when the missing puzzle piece snaps into the cardboard, when the chemistry diagram clears the confusion, that is the most addictive feeling in human intellect.
It really is.
It is the absolute climax of the detective's mind.
Yeah.
The eureka moment.
To really understand the weight of that feeling, we have to look at one of the most enduring historical metaphors in all of Western civilization.
Archimedes.
Yes. The story behind this phrase isolates the sudden, explosive joy of discovery, and it brings us back to ancient Greece, specifically to the mathematician and inventor Archimedes.
This is such an incredible piece of historical drama. So the king of Syracuse comes to Archimedes with a massive high-stakes problem. The king had given a goldsmith a specific amount of pure gold to craft a magnificent new crown.
A huge honor for the goldsmith.
Right. The crown is delivered and it looks beautiful, but the king is paranoid. He suspects the goldsmith cheated him by pocketing some of the gold and secretly mixing in cheaper silver to make up the weight.
A classic scam.
Exactly. So he demands that Archimedes prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, whether the crown is pure gold or a counterfeit alloy. But there is a massive catch. Archimedes is absolutely forbidden from scratching, melting, or damaging the crown in any way.
Which, from a physics standpoint at the time, seemed completely impossible.
How do you even test it without melting it down?
Well, you couldn't. normally.
Yeah.
To determine the density of an object, to see if it matches pure gold, you need to know its exact volume. But a crown is an incredibly irregular shape, full of leaves and intricate curves. You can't just measure it with a ruler.
Right.
So Archimedes was trapped in the deepest, most frustrating stages of problem solving. He was bombarded by the noise of the problem, completely unable to find the missing piece. He agonized over this for days, his brain totally short-circuiting.
He is completely stuck. The logic isn't working at all. So what does he do? He physically removes himself from the problem.
A very smart move.
He decides to take a break and go to the public baths. He steps up to a tub filled to the very brim with water, and as he slowly lowers his body into the tub, he watches the water level rise and spill over the edge onto the floor.
This is the critical shift to the subconscious we talked about earlier.
Right.
He wasn't sitting at a desk actively staring at the crown and doing math. He had stepped away, allowing his analytical mind to rest, which left his subconscious open to interpreting environmental clues.
And in that exact second, watching the water spill over the edge, it all falls into place. He realizes that his body is displacing an amount of water perfectly equal to the volume of his submerged body.
The straight line Tetris block drops.
Yes. Therefore, if he simply submerges the irregularly shaped crown in water, he can measure the exact volume of the displaced water. Then, he just compares its weight to the weight of a piece of pure gold of the exact same volume. If they differ, the crown is fake.
The math works perfectly.
And the realization hits him with such staggering force, such absolute overwhelming excitement, that he leaps out of the bathtub and runs completely naked through the streets of Syracuse, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Eureka! Eureka!"
Which translates from ancient Greek to, "I have found it."
I love that so much.
The sheer joy of that breakthrough was so powerful, it completely overrode all of his social inhibitions. I mean, he didn't even grab a towel.
No towel at all.
When we talk about a eureka moment, which is often visualized in cartoons as a bright light bulb suddenly turning on above a character's head, we are isolating that sudden, joyous, and spectacular instant of absolute clarity.
It's pure euphoria.
It is the euphoric high of finally discovering the elegant solution to a massive, seemingly impossible problem.
You know, it doesn't always have to be as grand as discovering the principles of fluid dynamics while naked either.
Thankfully.
Think about a modern mechanic. They have a car in the garage that just won't start. They spend 6 solid hours staring at the engine, checking the alternator, replacing the spark plugs, totally baffled and covered in grease.
Stuck in the weeds.
Right, and then they stop, take a sip of coffee, look down, and have a eureka moment. They realize the battery was simply installed backward the entire time.
Oh, man. The relief, but also the frustration.
Or, on the grandest scale possible, Isaac Newton sitting quietly in an orchard, watching an apple fall from a branch, and experiencing the ultimate eureka moment that allows him to conceptualize the universal law of gravity.
In every one of these cases, the answer wasn't hidden in some faraway land. The data was there the whole time, right in front of them. It was just waiting for the human mind to successfully organize the chaos, filter out the noise, and achieve that instant of perfect clarity.
But the cognitive journey doesn't actually end in the bathtub or the garage or the orchard.
No, it doesn't.
Because once you have that eureka moment, especially if you are an investigator or whistleblower or a journalist who has just uncovered a massive protected secret, the consequences of that clarity are inherently explosive.
You have to do something with it.
Right. You don't just solve the puzzle and go to sleep. You take your findings and you blow the lid off the scandal.
This final phrase transitions us from the internal world of the mind to the external world of societal impact. To blow the lid off something is an incredibly visceral, violent containment metaphor.
We're moving from bathtubs to thermodynamics.
Exactly. It shifts the imagery entirely.
Picture a heavy cast iron pot of boiling water on a stove, or maybe a modern pressure cooker that has been completely sealed shut. Inside that sealed, dark container, the heat is rapidly rising and the physical pressure of the steam is building up to terrifying levels.
It's highly volatile.
Very. The lid is locked down tight to keep everything contained. But if that heat keeps rising and the pressure gets too high, the steam doesn't just quietly hiss and leak out of the sides.
No, the physics don't allow for that.
The kinetic energy becomes so violently powerful that it literally explodes, shooting the heavy metal lid straight up into the air and releasing a massive cloud of scalding steam into the kitchen.
When we apply this thermodynamically violent imagery to society, the pressure cooker represents a massive, highly protected secret.
Like what?
It could be a corporate conspiracy, a political cover-up, or systemic corruption in a police department. The powerful people who are desperately trying to keep that secret hidden from the public, they are the heavy metal lid, locking the truth in the dark.
And the truth itself is the steam. It has a natural energy, and it cannot be contained in the dark forever.
It always finds a way out.
So to blow the lid off a situation means to suddenly, forcefully, and very publicly expose those illegal operations or scandals. It is an act of undeniable revelation that completely destroys the cover-up.
Imagine two investigative journalists who spend years reading the tea leaves, gathering the missing pieces of the puzzle, and finally having their eureka moment about a highly classified, illegal government surveillance program.
A massive story.
Huge. When they finally hit publish on that spectacular, heavily researched article, they blow the lid off the entire operation.
Or a rogue filmmaker who sneaks cameras into a facility and releases a documentary revealing horrific, hidden working conditions inside a major factory.
Yes. By publishing the undeniable truth, the pressure explodes, the cover-up is shattered, and the world is forced to deal with the fallout.
The contrast of this entire journey is genuinely brilliant when you look back at it.
It really is complete arc.
We started this deep dive in the quiet, anxious, internal intuition of a stomach dropping in a dark room, silently reading the tea leaves and trying to filter out the static noise on a radio dial.
Very internal, very quiet.
And the journey ends with the loud, external, violent explosion of a pressure cooker blowing the lid off a scandal for the entire world to see.
It proves that the process of problem solving is universally recognized as a difficult, deeply psychological trial. But the beauty of mastering these concepts, of understanding how to separate the signal from the noise, learning when to trust your gut feeling, and relentlessly hunting for the missing piece of the puzzle, is that you can actually map your own cognitive journey.
You can navigate it on purpose.
Exactly. You can articulate your own intellectual breakthroughs. When you understand the architecture of how your own mind works, you don't just feel more in control, you genuinely operate like a true analytical genius.
It really is a breathtaking way to look at how we think. And it brings us to a final provocative thought. At the very end of the masterclass transcript we've been analyzing today, the authors posed a question to their community, and I want to reframe a version of it directly to you, the listener, as you go about the rest of your day.
It's a great question to reflect on.
Think back to the last time you were faced with a major decision, and you had a strong, undeniable gut feeling about a person or a situation. A feeling that completely defied all of the neat, logical data sitting right in front of you, but ultimately turned out to be 100% correct.
We've all had one.
What was the exact eureka moment when the chaotic Tetris blocks finally fell into place for you? And looking back, how long did it take you, standing alone and hyper-focused in that forest, to finally separate your true intuitive signal from the anxious buzzing noise inside your own mind?
It's a powerful reflection on how we navigate the mysteries in our everyday lives. It challenges us to trust the machinery of our own minds a little bit more.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of human breakthroughs. We hope this exploration helps you organize the chaos in your own mind, trust your own internal signals, and we wish you absolute clarity in all of your future investigations. Until next time.